Hi, guys. Welcome back to In Between Sets. Today, it's just me here for a solo episode. Our beautiful Amanda is still in Bali, getting ready to fly to Italy for her final show of the season. So, it's just me here today, and I'm going to keep it very value packed for you guys. I'm excited to talk about today's topic because, a little bit of a personal update, I have just entered a growth phase myself. As you guys know from the last episode, I've been in a little bit of a training slump lately, just really disconnected from training. After my show, I was struggling to find that fire again, but something has shifted. I think even just talking about it has made me feel so much better, and I've just really found that purpose and that spark to train again. So I've entered a growth phase for the next 16 weeks, I think it is now, before I start dieting before my holiday at the end of the year. So I thought no better time to talk about muscle growth for women than now when I'm in it myself. So I thought I'd talk about some of the mistakes that I've made and some of the misconceptions that I still see when it comes to building muscle for women and some of the mistakes that I see other women still make as well. So let's dive into it. Now, I think the internet has made growth phases look either completely extreme or completely effortless. And the reality is that building an impressive physique, it's actually a very calculated process and it takes a lot of time. So when I first ever tried to attempt to bulk, I wish I could show you guys a photo. I literally gained like 10 kilos. And a lot of that was obviously just body fat because this was back in the days where muscle growth for women was not really spoken about. And there was not a lot of information out there. We didn't have TikTok or anything like that. I was getting all of my information from like bodybuilding.com, where dirty bulking was still a really big thing. So I went into this with the mindset of I'm just going to eat as much as I can of whatever I want. And the whole time I was like, this is great. This is fantastic. I'm eating like KFC for dinner, getting my protein in, whatever. And I just got really fat pretty much. And then I had to cut all of that down. And it kind of scarred me from building muscle, but I was still not happy with my physique. Yes, obviously I gained a little bit of muscle in that process, but not even close to what I wanted or what I expected. Next time around, I realized that you have to do it in a way that's still controlled. You still have to be strategic about it. You can't just eat whatever you want and as much as you want because there is a way to build muscle while minimizing fat gain and maximizing muscle growth. And a lot of women, they just have this big misconception that in order to build muscle, you have to gain a lot of fat. And that's simply not it. Weight gain is something that might happen alongside that process. Yes, you're going to gain a little bit of fat along the way, but it shouldn't be a full blowout. I think that distinction matters a lot because if your only focus becomes pushing the scale up as fast as possible, you usually end up with all of that unnecessary fat gain instead of better muscle growth. A productive growth phase, and this is what I say to all my clients as well, you still need to tick all the boxes as if you were in a cut. You should be focusing on your performance, on your recovery. Obviously, strength should be increasing the gym, better energy levels, digestion as well, like your food choices. It's not just about calories and it's not just about trying to gain as much weight as possible. Food alone does not build muscle. It's the training stimulus that builds muscle as well. So before you even think about entering a growth phase, learn how to actually train properly and learn how to train with intensity. Because I've had a lot of women come to me, and this is not to badmouth other coaches or anything like that, but they'll come to me from previous coaches, and these girls have only been training for like a year. They don't know how to push hard in the gym yet. They don't have that intensity behind them. And their previous coach put them on like 2,800 calories to build muscle when they're still in that newbie gain phase, but they don't actually know how to put in the work, like that output in the gym to actually build muscle. So before you even think about entering a build phase, make sure you learn how to tick all of the boxes first. Because like I said, it's a very calculated process and you need to have the fundamentals right first, as if you would if you were going into a cut. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what kind of rate of gain you should actually be aiming towards to ensure that you are building muscle and not just gaining a bunch of unnecessary body fat. Because like I said, social media has distorted expectations massively. And if you're not a competitive bodybuilder or a powerlifter trying to put on weight, anything like that, you don't need to go to these extreme levels of weight gain. You absolutely can do it in a way that is more controlled and staying on the leaner side of things, because there is nothing worse than trying to build your dream physique and then ending up in a worse physique and you're just so uncomfortable the whole way through. It's just going to put you off the entire process. So, the surplus amounts and the rate of gain is where a lot of people tend to overshoot. Like I said, dirty bulking is dead. It's fucking dead, guys. We don't do that anymore. Okay. So, just let that go. You do not need a huge calorie surplus to build muscle. Usually, the leaner and the more advanced that you are as well, the smaller the surplus will be. For most women, aiming for anywhere from 100 to 300 calories at most above maintenance is going to be enough to support muscle growth. Sometimes even less, especially if, like I said, your training quality is there, your stress is good, your recovery is where it needs to be, and you're eating more consistently, because your body can simply become more anabolic from just improving training quality and recovery as well. You don't always need these massive food bumps. And in terms of the rate of gain, generally we want things moving pretty slowly and controlled. This is where, as always, I recommend working with a coach to make sure that you're not overshooting and just blowing out too quickly. You should not be gaining a fucking kilo a week. You should not be gaining that quickly, because that is just unnecessary fat gain. And guess what? The more fat that you put on, that means the more fat that you have to lose later. And dieting sucks, let's be real. No one likes to diet for a long time. So for women, we want to aim for anywhere from zero point 0.1 to 0.25% of body weight gain per week. So that's like if you're 60 kilos, gaining around 60 grams to 150 grams per week on average is productive. Beginners can sometimes push slightly higher. Advanced lifters, it's going to be a little bit slower. Unfortunately, the longer that you have been training and the more muscle that you put on, the slower the process is. So that's not very fast. Like, I know you hear that and you're probably like, fuck, that's going to take a long time. But that's exactly the point, because muscle growth itself is really slow. And if there is someone out there promising you to double your glute size in 8 weeks, don't fucking listen to them, because muscle growth is a slow process, especially the longer that you have been training as well. So, I wanted to tell you guys a little bit more about my own experience with muscle growth. Because like I said, I gained weight way too quickly. I was not aware of the rate of gain that I was aiming towards. This was, like I said, in that dirty bulking era. Men were just kind of like, you watch all the bodybuilding shows and men are just stuffing their faces with like buckets full of rice. So I thought that's what I needed to do as well. So not only did I gain a bunch of unnecessary body fat, but I also really fucked up my digestion. And I was still eating in a way where I was eating all of these low calorie foods. And then I was always feeling really, really full. And I was trying to include as much volume in my meals as possible, because I had no awareness around food back then. And I was so used to like that diet culture of eating as little as possible. So I kind of fucked up my digestion at the same time. And that took a long time to fix as well. One thing that I hear from a lot of my own clients is, I'm trying to build muscle, but I'm just so full all of the time. And a lot of the time I find it's because they're still eating as if they're trying to diet. Because us women, we have been so conditioned for so long to try to eat as little as possible. So we're trying to eat a lot of volume to stay full. We're eating low calorie this and sugar free that and low fat this and all of these foods that eventually are going to start to fuck with your gut bacteria. And then you're going to feel super, super full because you're eating fucking salads for lunch and dinner. When you're building muscle, you might reach a point where you are starting to feel a little bit full. Okay, that's normal. We are in a surplus of calories. Surplus of calories means that you are eating more energy than your body needs. So you're going to feel a little bit full. So I would avoid things like huge salads, loading up your plate with lots of veggies, like protein puddings, low calorie everything, protein bars consistently. These strategies, and we'll call them like fitness foods, quote unquote fitness foods, they exist to create fullness during a deficit. And these are not foods that we want to be including in our everyday diet anyway, especially if we're trying to build muscle and get our calories in. When you're no longer in a deficit, all of that volume is just going to be physically uncomfortable. You might actually feel a little bit better eating more slightly calorie dense foods. Like, for example, when I'm in a build phase, I'm putting fucking honey on everything. I'm sprinkling like my avo toast with nuts and seeds to get my healthy fats in. I'm eating lots of like fruit because it doesn't fill you up very much. Higher volume foods. Like, even if you struggle to get your healthy fats in, a little drizzle of olive oil on your food. I'm cooking with oil again. Like, if I'm cutting, I'm not really using oil to cook. You're kind of doing the opposite of what you would do in a fat loss phase because you're trying to bump that food up without actually feeling too full. And that could also mean reducing all of those like artificial fitness foods, we'll call them artificial sweeteners, excessive protein snacks, because we should know by now that we should be getting a majority of our protein from complete whole food protein sources. That's what our body loves. And just eating more balanced meals overall. And don't be afraid of sugar. I had a client come to me, it was actually the other week. I had a client come to me asking me how much sugar she should be consuming daily. She's like, she's in a build phase right now, right? Like, we put her calories up a couple of weeks prior to that. She's in like a 200-ish calorie surplus from memory. And she's like, I'm eating so much sugar. Like, the target on my fitness pal, I'm eating like 30 grams above that. What's recommended? The thing is, when you're building muscle, you're probably going to be on high carbs, and carbs are sugar. And just like I said, if you're eating things like honey and fruits and all of these foods to try to bulk up those calories and get those carbs in, you're going to be eating a lot of sugar. But if you are an active person, if you're training consistently, training hard in the gym, you are going to metabolize that sugar differently to an average person that doesn't exercise. So it's not necessarily something to be afraid of. The recommended targets that you might see on MyFitnessPal, these are usually targets just by like the World Health Guidelines, and they're not necessarily for active people. When you're eating all of that sugar and you're going into the gym, you are burning through that shit. Like, that is all glycogen in your muscles. That's like glucose. You're burning through that. So don't be afraid to add a little bit of sugar into your day. And that I'm not telling you to go fucking binge eat a whole bag of, I don't know, red frogs or something, even though like been there, done that. I'm not telling you to do that, but don't be afraid of increasing some sugar in your diet to help you get those calories up. Now, I think one of the biggest mindset shifts in going into a build phase is accepting that your dream physique is going to take years. And that might be hard to hear. And I remember the first coach that I ever had, I sent him a photo of, I can't remember who it was. Who was it? I can't remember who it was. It was this fitness influencer. And she had like the huge quads and huge glutes, like absolutely fucking jacked. She probably was a natty, like now that I think back. And I sent him this photo and I was like, I want to look like this. And he was like, we can work towards that, but this is going to be like 5 years of training. And I just remember my heart dropping and I was like, what's the point? Like, why would I put in all this work and I'm not going to look like that for another 5 years? Like, are you kidding? And then I realized that that time is going to pass anyway. The time's going to pass anyway. So I could either keep showing up for myself, stay consistent, knowing that that time's going to pass anyway. And year by year, my physique will start to look better. It's still going to progress. Every single year, I look better and better. And I got to that like 5 year point and I was pretty fucking close. Like, I built my glutes, I built my quads, and I'm just so glad that me, like 5 years ago, 5, 6, whenever that was, years ago, decided to just keep showing up and stay committed and not let the timeline expectation. And so, like, bless that coach that he was actually realistic with me, because there's a lot of coaches out there And I've heard this from my clients as well. There's a lot of coaches out there. They'll be like, yeah, we'll do that in 12 weeks. Or all these like 12-week challenges shit that you see. It's going to take years. And I'm going to tell you that right now. And I've had this conversation with a lot of my own clients as well, where literally same thing. They'll send me a photo of an amazing physique and I'm like, we can work towards that, but it's going to take some time. Like, are you willing to keep putting in the work for a few years consistently? Not one 12-week block, not one build phase, not one Instagram challenge. Like this build phase that I'm in at the moment, this would be like my what year is it? 2026. Probably like my fifth build phase I've ever done, if we include the really bad one that I did where I gained a bunch of fat. Like this is years of work. And I have clients who have been with me for 3 years now that have done like 2 or 3 growth phases with me and still keen to keep going because the thing about building muscle is you always want more. You're never satisfied, like you always want more. And that's why a lot of people, they never achieve that dream physique because they don't want to put in the work for that long, or they don't have the patience, or they simply keep interrupting the process emotionally. Like every time they feel slightly uncomfortable, they abandon the phase. Every time the scale moves up a little bit, they start to panic. They put on a kilo over a few months. They're like, no, I need to go into a cut, mini cut, mini cut, mini cut. And letting your emotions dictate what you're doing is actually just holding you back from getting there even sooner. Because if you're trying to build an incredible physique, you have to stay patient enough. And I always tell my girls that, like, this is a long game. This is for life. Like, this takes a long time. And you have to be willing to stay committed to the long game. And that sometimes means looking a little bit softer temporarily, um, in part of building something much greater long term. I always say it is a temporary discomfort or a permanent reward. And that time is going to pass anyway. And I think entering a proper growth phase, it teaches you a lot about identity as well. Like I've taken so many lessons from my own growth phases and I've built so much confidence in that time as well. And I always say, like, bodybuilding really helped me learn how to love my body in every season that it's in because I learned how to still love myself, even if I do feel a little bit uncomfortable, even if I'm a little bit softer or a little bit heavier than I'm used to. I've learned to still love my body throughout every single process because eventually you have to stop tying your worth to being as lean as possible year round. You have to learn how to value your own performance, your strength, your progression, your energy, like your health, and just realizing how much you are truly capable of instead of just always focusing on the physique. And going into prep last year, and this kind of just to kind of take it back to like personal story, going into prep last year, I feel like I lost touch with that a little bit. Obviously, in prep, you are very physique focused. You're no longer chasing performance in the gym. You're not going to get any stronger. You're eating fuck all food. Like, you're not going to be hitting PBs in the gym after a little while. So it becomes very physique focused. You're constantly checking your physique, checking for new lines or new this or new that. You become very, very physique focused. And coming out of prep post show, I feel like I kind of lost touch with all of the things that I listed earlier, all of those other values like my strength and my energy. I lost touch with that. And I was still very heavily physique focused. And after your show, your physique changes rapidly, like rapidly. It has to. You have to get back to a healthy level of body weight. And it comes back on a lot faster than it comes off. And that can be a bit of like a rude awakening if you have never experienced that before, because your mind is still stuck in this place of being super, super, super lean and being so physique focused. And now all of a sudden, your physique is looking like not worse, but because you're a bit bloated, you're a little bit inflamed, you're a little bit watery, you haven't seen yourself like that for a long time, you look a little bit worse. Week by week, you look a little bit worse, a little bit worse, a little bit worse. And it's so hard not to fixate on that And I think that is where my whole little training slump kind of came from because I was still so physique focused. I was not happy with the way that my physique was looking. I felt like I was kind of losing myself a little bit. I felt like I was kind of showing up to the gym with no real purpose. I was just really fell out of my values when it comes to training. And if you are a repeat listener, you know that Amanda and I talk about our values a lot. Like everything you do in this life, it should be built on your values. That is the fucking key to a happy life. It's following your own values. And when I first started training, what made me fall in love with training was showing up in the gym and getting stronger every week. It was improving my technique, my execution. I'd watch videos and see how my form has improved. And I'd be like, fuck yeah, I did that. Like, I did it. I finally got the perfect technique. Those are the things that made me fall in love with training in the first place. And I think I just really needed to reconnect with that to get out of that training slump as well. So if you're listening to this, maybe if you have ever felt like you have been in a little bit of a training slump, because I've heard it from my clients as well. Maybe you've just lost that drive a little bit, you've lost that motivation, you're just struggling to keep showing up in the gym. That excitement isn't there anymore. Maybe set some new goals, maybe shift your focus a little bit. Because after my show, I was still trying so hard to be so focused on these physique goals. Like I got the judges' feedback and they told me to build my upper glutes a little bit, build my delts a little bit. So I was like, okay, that's my main focus right now. But mentally, I was so burnt out from being so physique focused that those goals, they just weren't hitting for me. Like I wasn't aligned with them anymore. So I was showing up to the gym, trying to chase these goals that I just didn't value at that time. And that is what kind of caused me to lose that love for training a little bit. And it wasn't until I actually set some new goals, strength focused goals, like right now I'm doing a more strength focused block. It wasn't until I set some new goals that I actually started to just find that little bit of purpose in the gym again. I got really specific about it as well. Like chose specific exercises, specific PBs, like targets that I want to hit, performance-based goals, just really kind of changing up my style of training and setting some new goals really gave me the fire back. Like I found my spark again. So if you have ever felt that way, maybe you feel that way right now, that is my best advice for you is to set some new goals. Because I've done this with my clients so many times before and they come back to me a couple weeks later and they're like, wow, like I'm enjoying training again. I'm excited to show up. I'm excited to watch myself progress. Also, another thing, like if you ever have felt like you're in a little bit of training slump, maybe your physique goals aren't aligning with you anymore. And this this is just taken such a turn. Like this topic, I literally am talking all about physiques and muscle building, and now I'm like, shift your focus from physique. But just coming back to like personal stuff, if you have ever felt like you are in that little bit of a training slump, change your environment as well. I signed up to a new gym recently, and now that I've signed up to a new gym, I just realized how much I was not vibing with my old gym. No hate to the gym that I was going to. I'm not going to like name and shame, but I was just not vibing it. I was not vibing the atmosphere. I just wasn't enjoying training there. So even just changing your environment sometimes can be really, really beneficial because that has really helped me just find my spark again. So yeah, I think coming back to your values, and just keeping those values no matter what phase you're in is going to be really, really important. And like I said, I always recommend getting a coach if you are navigating a phase like this for the first time because there is so much mindset that is behind it as well. Like, yes, it is a physique focused phase. You're trying to build muscle, but your mindset needs to be in the right place too, especially if you do come from, like myself, I came from a background of always trying to be as small as possible, always trying to eat as little as possible. Us women, we are conditioned this way growing up, unfortunately. Like our mums went through it, our grandmas went through it, and that kind of gets passed down with generations as well. Like I grew up always listening to my mom going on this diet, and she's cutting out this food, she's trying this exercise. And that kind of stays with you. And it stayed with me all the way, like up until I was a teenager. So going into this phase where someone was like, no, you actually need to eat more and gain weight, It's fucking terrifying. It can be really, really scary. But if you have big physique goals, it's just what you need to do. And you need to learn how to sit in the discomfort and learn how to be uncomfortable. And like I said, learn how to love your body through every single season, because it's going to really just strengthen that self love and strengthen that self respect and self belief. And I have guided so many women through this throughout their first build phase, and they're always so scared going into it. And I was too, like, I completely understand that. But every time they come out of it, they're like, I'm so glad I did that. That has just not only changed my physique, but just changed my life and changed my mindset around everything. Um, so that is where the real mindset shift happens. So, just some takeaways here. Remember that it is a slow process. Growth phases are meant to be controlled, they're meant to be strategic, and they're going to be slow. I would not recommend going into a build phase for any less than 16 weeks, to be honest. Any less than that, and it's just not enough time for that adaptation to really occur. Like the first 6 to 8 weeks, that's just a warm up. You're just kind of getting used to, especially if it's your first build phase, you're still working out where your weights are at in the gym. You're still working out how to actually increase your calories, what foods work well for you, what's not going to make you feel really bloated and throw off your digestion and feel really gross. I always say, like, those first 6 to 8 weeks is just an adjustment period. It's just a warm up. So give yourself at least 16 weeks, even longer. Like, if you can spend 6 months there, I would recommend it. Sit in the discomfort. Know that you can utilize things like mini cuts. I really like to utilize mini cuts with my own clients. If things start to get a little bit too crazy, if you do start to feel a little bit uncomfortable, maybe you overshot, you can always utilize something like a mini cut to just tidy up a little bit. But don't be that girl who starts building for 2 months, puts on a tiny, tiny bit of weight, and goes into a mini cut and then does it again and does it again and does it again, because you're going to end up in this cycle. And 8 weeks is just not enough time to actually see any noticeable muscle growth. So pay attention to your rate of gain. Give yourself long enough to actually grow. Remember that this is not the time to be overloading on heaps of volume and low calorie foods and just trying to eat as many veggies as possible. You're going to feel really full and you're going to feel really bloated and you're going to feel really yuck and uncomfortable. So don't be afraid of utilizing some sugar. Don't be afraid of carbs. We love carbs, okay? And understand that this really is the long game. And there are so many benefits that come to going into a proper growth phase that is so far beyond just the physical. But every incredible physique that you see, all of your favorite influencers, your gym talk influencers, everyone that you see, they have gone through this process multiple times, because no one has built an incredible physique by trying to stay lean all year round. No one has built an incredible physique by trying to eat as little as possible and being afraid of weight gain. Sure, a lot of people might not share it. They might not share what their physique looks like in a build phase. I think everyone should. I'm very open about that. But that really is the way to get to that strong, defined, and athletic physique that you are looking for. You have to be willing to sit in the discomfort. You have to be willing to commit to the long game and be patient. And you've got to be willing to show up, even if you're feeling a little bit softer and feeling a little bit heavier, because that is where the progress actually happens. So learn from my mistakes, because I put this off for a very long time because I was so terrified of gaining weight or eating more. The first time I did it, because I'd lived in a cycle of restriction for so many years. First time that I did it, I just saw that as an opportunity to just absolutely binge eat for months and months and months. So don't do that either. Learn how to do it in a way that is controlled. And if you're feeling unsure, get yourself a coach. If any of this hit home for you, share it with a friend or on Instagram and tag us. We really appreciate the support, and it helps us just get the message out there to other women like yourself. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to spread the message. We're trying to break the bullshit in the industry. So share it with a friend, share it in your story. We really appreciate the support. Okay. Thanks, guys.